Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks with another tutorial for SylenthTutorials.com. First, if you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please sign up at youtube.com/ADSR Tuts, that's Tuts. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks or some techniques that will allow you to create some separation between your sounds in Sylenth that might be using all four oscillators or both part A and part B to make them. So I have a little progression made up here using this main sound that we'll be focusing on, this top track right here. And it's kind of like a big super saw lead. Right? So it's a really big, bright, edgy, modern lead. So I wanted to show you what it sounds like before you apply these tips and tricks to it. So here is the same patch, but I have not done the things I'm going to show you in this video to it. So it's still big. It still sounds really cool on its own. Like if you play this without a track under it, it still sounds really cool, but there's a certain thing that happens when you play it with the mix where it starts to get lost in translation. It just doesn't sound as, I guess, natural. So I wanted to show you what's going on because let's look at Sylenth and kind of how it's set up real quick. So you have two parts. You have part A and part B, and in each of those parts of the synth, you have oscillators. You have two oscillators, so it's technically you have four oscillators to play with inside of Sylenth. Well, you only have by default, really, the only way you have to separate the two oscillators is these mix tabs down here, mix A and B. So I wanted to solo what's going on with this sound. So here's part A. Let's solo it and see what it sounds like. Here's part B. And those collectively make that sound. So when I made this sound, I designated part A to be kind of my high frequency content. It's this noise and this saw sound. Right? And then I have part B, which is more of the bulk or the meat of the sound. It's just some more stacked saws. And you can see I pitched one of those down to -1. So this is a little bit my lower frequency content, just a little bit. Well, when you put those together, it gets a really cool big sound, but there's this phenomenon going on where when you have it with the mix, like if you look at where this first MIDI hits and my kick, they're happening on a lot of, they're sharing a lot of beats. The one they're sharing right here, I mean, they're sharing multiple sections of the downbeat and even some of the ups. So you need to do something that makes it pop out, right? Well, what you can do is obviously you can mess with the mix A and B to get the higher frequency content to sound out a little bit. Or you have two options. You can use the amp envelopes or the modulation envelopes to kind of create some cool separation. So let's look at what I did here. By default, in your amp envelopes, they'll look like this. The decay will just be up all the way. Well, in this final sound, what I did was I looked at each section or each part, and I was like, okay, which one do I want to have more sustain or more release? Well, you can see in part A, which is the high frequency content, in the finished sound, I have more release. So the release of this noise and this kind of higher pitched saw going on right here will ring out a little bit longer. The decay times are pretty much the same. The sustain is a little bit shorter on the part B, and that's just a subtle thing. Now the cool main tip and trick I wanted to show you in this video, besides obviously varying your amp envelopes, which is kind of a no-brainer, is the modulation envelopes with the pitch A and the pitch B. So I've showed you a trick a couple times or in some tutorials where you can apply pitch A and B cutoff, to your modulation envelope and apply a little bit of decay, and it adds this kind of crispy snap. If you go too high with it, it gets too audible and kind of sounds like a laser zap, but just a little bit of it can add kind of a plucky feel to it, which helps separate your sounds from when they maybe share with a kick or a bass. So with this, what I did was I did a negative direction with one of the parts of the synth, and I did a positive direction with the other part. So let's turn this off and listen to the sound, both part A and part B. Okay, so that sounds better, and that has the separation with the amp envelopes than it did with this, and we'll compare these real quick. So here is no separation with the amp envelopes, and here is with separation. All right, so it just has a little bit more of a natural vibe to it, but let's look at this pitch envelope, this pitch modulation envelope I applied. So I could just apply pitch A and B and add that snap and attack, but it's cool with 4-part sounds and Sylenth to do 2 instances of maybe pitch A and pitch B. So pitch A, I'm going to apply some positive modulation to, because this is the weaker of the 2 parts of my sound. This one lacks punch and clarity. So when I apply pitch A, I drag this little rotary knob up to about 2, maybe 2.4 tops, and I drag the decay up until I start to hear a little bit of a pluck. So that's obviously too much, so I'm going to bring it back down. All right, so there's just that little bit of kind of crispy snap to the attack. And I'm applying that to just part A. So if I unsolo this, part B still remains untouched. So let's listen to that. Now I'll turn off pitch A. So it just hits harder on the downs, which is nice. So now let's look at what we can do with pitch B. So I selected pan, that's wrong. So let's on pitch B, and I'm going to turn pitch A off for this and solo B. So we have this, we have that for our part B. Well, what I did was I went downwards with it. So I'm going to exaggerate the effect and turn this rotary knob down more. It creates this kind of like portamento-ish type pitch glide, right? Well, if you apply it, you obviously have to apply it with the same amount of the decay, which I'm going to go back up to like 2.24. So this is kind of doing the opposite, right? The part A with the pitch A modulating it, it's adding this kind of crispy snap because we're modulating the decay in a positive direction with the pitch. Now we're modulating in a negative direction. So this is kind of dragging it out. So you have both of those elements happening, which will really help to spread out the differences between part A and part B. So let's listen to this together. So I went back down to 1.49 just so it's more musical. I just had it up higher so you could hear it. Okay, so again, I'm going to turn those off. And then as I'm playing it, I'm going to turn that back on. So it just adds this element of a little bit of separation because you're modulating them in a way that will make it stand out from each other. So that helps. So now you have, of course, you can then go to your mix A and B and decide which one you want to be higher. Which I would want mix B to be a little bit louder than mix A, because that's mix A is mainly my high frequency content. So then I'll turn mix A down a little, and mix B up just a pinch, and this would be the final sound. All right, if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.